Good afternoon, sir. We are the Group 5 reporters. Our topic is all about the human trafficking and human rights in migration. These are my group members: Japet Parame, Jorme Cabanlit Sido, Josuel Inok, John Rico Ababa, Joshua Munzon Noel, Joaquin Isguera, Olay Paul R, and Tugib JP Kiao.
Hello everyone, I'm Engine Cadet Ababa and I'm here to discuss what is the human trafficking. So to understand the topic, I will give you the definition. So first is, it is a illegal transportation of people for forced labor, sex exploitation, and forced marriages. So it means that they illegally transported people from one place to another, which is not allowed by the law, just to force them to labor or to make them work that is against their will, or make them a sex exploitation means that they will be used as a sex partner, or force them to be married. So second is, human trafficking is the recruitment and transportation of people for the purpose of exploitation. So it means that they illegally transported people by the use of recruitment. Then they will transport them so that to the purpose of exploitation. So after the transported, they will be forced, or they will force that is against their will, to become a labor, or become a sex partner, or force them to be to become married, and etc. So next is, trafficking of human being is their trade of commercial dealing. So it means that instead of trading for goods or products, they use human being as their trade. Example, the trade of money or trade for drugs. So last is, human trafficking is a process of people being recruited in their community and other of origin and transported to the destination where they are being exploited for the purpose of forced labor, prostitution, domestic servitude, and other form of exploitation. So it means that the victims of human trafficking, or the person that they recruited, are just inside the community and or inside the country that they are originated, and they are being exported uh, widely or worldwide for the purpose of being exploited, or being forced labor, that they will forced to be to work that is against their will, for being a prostitute, domestic servitude, and etc.
Good day, I'm Engine Cadet Noel Joshua. So today I'm going to tackle what is human trafficking is. Human trafficking is defined as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or reception of person for the purpose of profit by force, fraud, or deception. This crime, which occur in every corner of the world, can affect men and women and children of all ages and backgrounds to fall and course their victims. Traffickers frequently use violence, phony employment and agencies, and false promises of education and work possibilities. Sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage are the three most common types or example of human trafficking. According to the United States, forced labor, known as involuntary servitude, is the most common form of human trafficking. Women and children are differently affected by sex trafficking, which entails forced involvement in commercial sex activities. Human trafficking is frequently associated with women who have been coerced into prostitution. This is only one facet of the problem of human trafficking. Men and children are among the survivors of human trafficking, and they are exploited in a variety of ways. That's all.
So good day everyone, I'm Engineer Chat with Rami. I'm here to continue the given topic about the three elements of human trafficking. So let's proceed. So what are the three elements of human trafficking? Article of the Trafficking Protocol that clarifies that trafficking in person has three constituent elements. So again, I will repeat. The first one is an act, which is what is done. The second one is the means or how it is done. And the lastly is explorative purpose in why it is done. So in essence for human trafficking to occur, a trafficker will. The first one is commit at least one act against another person, such as recruiting. The second one is by using at least one means, such as violence. The lastly is for the purpose of exploiting to that other person for financial gain or material benefit. So to create human trafficking, which is how the act plus means, that purpose equals human trafficking. So act, the trafficker must commit one or more of the following acts. For example, recruit, transport, transfer, harbor, receive or receive benefit, and lastly is the control. So means use one or more of the following means. Example, violence, threat of violence, and coercion, abduction, fraud or deception, and lastly abuse of power of position of vulnerability. So next one is purpose. For the purpose of exploration in one of the more or following forms. For example, sexual exploration, forced labor, slavery, servitude, organ removal, forced labor, or services. So, for the purpose of exploitation in one or more of the following forms. The first one is a sexual exploitation. This is when someone is deceived, coerced, or forced to take part in sexual activity, places where someone could be sexually exploited. For example, prostitution, brothels or massage or sauna. The third one is escort agencies, pole, forced marriage, stripping on a webcam, phone sex lines, internet chat rooms, pornography, and lastly is the mall orders bride. So next one is the forced labor. This refers to a situation where people are coerced to work for little or no remuneration, often under threat of punishment. There are a number of means through which a person can be coerced, including use of violence, of intimidation, accumulated debt, and retention of identity papers. Next one is the slavery. We believe everyone everywhere has the right to the life of free from slavery, but right now millions of children and adults are trapped in an exploration of other people for personal or commercial gain. So next one is the servitude. Domestic servitude is a form of trafficking in human beings which is extremely difficult to detect because the work is performed to private residents and serving normal practice that is used over comfort. Next one is the organ removal. So the meaning of organ removal, that the trafficking in organs involves removing a part of a body, commonly the kidneys or a lobe of the liver, to sell, often as an illegal trade. Organ can be taken in number ways. So trade. A victim formally or informally agrees to sell an organ but are cheated because they are not paid for the organ for the paid less than the promised price. So ailments. A vulnerable person is treated for an ailment which may or may not may not exist, and the organs are removed without the victim's knowledge. Next one is extortion. So the meaning of extortion is which a victim may be kidnapped from their family and organs removed without consent. And lastly is the first labor or services, that the first a compulsory labor is all work or service which is exacted from the any person under the threat or penalty and for which the person has not offered and served or herself voluntary international labor organization forced labor convention. So that's all for my reporting, and thank you.
Today, I'm Engine Cadet Esguerra, and I will be giving example of human trafficking cases. So first is trafficking for forced labor. Victims of this whispered form of trafficking comes from primarily from developing countries. They are recruited and trafficked using deception and coercion and find themselves held in condition of slavery in variety of jobs. Victims can be engaged in agricultural, mining, fisheries, or construction work, along with domestic servitude and other labor-intensive jobs. Next is trafficking for forced criminal activities. This form of trafficking allows criminal network to reap the profits of variety of illicit activities without the risk. Victims and are forced to carry out a range of illegal activities which in turn generate income. These can include theft, drug cultivation, selling counterfeit goods, or forced begging. Victims are often have quotas and can face severe punishment if they do not perform adequately. Next is trafficking in woman sexual exploitation. This prevalent form of trafficking affects every region in the world, either as a source, transit, or destination country. Women and children from developing countries and from vulnerable parts of society in developed countries are lured by promises of decent employment into leaving their homes and traveling to what they considered will be a better life. Victims are often provided with false travel documents, and an organized network is used to transport them to a destination country where they find themselves forced into sexual exploitation and held in inhumane condition and constant terror. Lastly, trafficking for the removal of organs. In many countries, waiting lists for transplant are very long, and criminals have seized this opportunity to exploit the desperation of patients and potential donors. The health of the victims are even at risk is at operation may be carried out in clandestine conditions with no medical follow-up. An, an aging population and increase of incidence of diabetes in many developed countries is likely to increase and required for organ transplant and make this crime even more lucrative.
Hi, this is Ciro Jerome, the continuation of three elements of human trafficking. So here's the three elements of human trafficking. First act, second means, third is purpose. So this is my assign. First is violence. It's the use of physical force so as to injure, abuse, damage, or destroy. Second is threat of violence. Threat of violence means any intentional communication or other act that threatens an act of violence and would cause a reasonable person to feel terrorized, threatened, or fear physical injury or death to oneself or another person. Third is coercion. It's compelling a party to act in involuntary manner by use of pretense, including force. It involves a set of various types of forceful action that violate the free will an individual to induce a desired response. For example, a bully demanding lunch money from a student or the student gets beaten. Fourth is abduction. Abduction of the wrist, moving the hand away from the body at wrist when that arm is a person's side is called radial deviation. Fifth is fraud. Is a criminal deception intended to result in financial or person gain. Six is deception. Deception is an act of or statement which misleads, hides the truth, or promotes a believed concept or idea that is not true. Lastly, is abuse of power or position of vulnerability. Abuse of a position of vulnerability occurs when an individual personal situation or circumstance trial vulnerability is intentionally used or otherwise taken advantage of to recruit, transfer, harbor, or receive the person for the purpose of exploiting him or her. That's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Engine Kadit Kiaot. I report all about the three elements of human trafficking. In essence, for human trafficking to occur, a trafficker will first commit at least one act against another person, such as recruiting act. The trafficker must commit one or more of the following acts: recruit, transport, transfer, harbor, receive, give, receive benefits, control.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Engine Cadet Polar Olay. My topic is all about the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines. The government increased the protection efforts. The government continued to implement formal procedures to identify the potential trafficking victims in the Philippines and overseas and refer them of official agencies or NGOs or non-government officials for care. The government did not report comprehensive unduplicated potential data. The Philippine law enforcement reported identified 1,443 trafficking victims compared with 2,953 victims in 2018. The IACC Air Task Force identified 2,500 potential trafficking victims through operation or deferred departures, 820 in 2018. The BI Travel Control and Enforcement Unit TECU identified and referred 337 potential victims of trafficking and 92 potential victims of illegal recruitment to IAC Task Force, 286 in 2018. The DFA for foreign mission primarily in the Middle East and Asia identified 6,772 potential Filipino trafficking victims and 2,591 in the preceding period. The vast majority of these victims reported experiencing forced labor and illegal recruitment. Based on my understanding on my report about the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines, there are 92 potential victims of human trafficking and some of them are recruited by NGOs or non-government officials and experiencing forced labor, and other is sex trafficking victims, and the country involved is in this activity are the Middle East and Asia, and 672 potential Filipino trafficking victims, and the majority of sex trafficking is women. Thank you.
So hi everyone, I'm Mr. Gisteril Pinolpe, and today I'm going to talk about human trafficking. So human trafficking is the acquisition and exploitation of people through means such as force, fraud, or deception. The practice ensures millions of women and girls into modern-day slavery, many of whom are sexually exploited. Then human traffickers prey on very poor people, usually makes false promises of a better life and financial security. Sadly, they will often promise parents to take their children from them in order to help the children escape poverty. The children end up on the street begging for money, which they turn over to their boss or in brothels. There are many poor areas in Philippines that have become prime targets. So the example of um, human trafficking is sexual exploitation, forced labor, domestic servitude, um, organ removal, forced begging, child soldiers, and forced marriage. So, human trafficking and sexual exploitation, there are 71 of all trafficking victims worldwide are women and girls. 3 out of 4 trafficked women and girls are sexually exploited. The government of the Philippines fully meets the minimum standard of the elimination of trafficking. The government continued to demonstrate serious and sustained efforts during the reporting period. Therefore, the Philippines remained on Tier 1. These efforts includes improving the coordination of service for returning Filipino migrants working who were victims of trafficking overseas, convicting and punishing traffickers, including an official complicit in sex trafficking and labor traffickers. So human trafficking in the Philippines, there are 300 to 400,000 are women, and there are 60,000 to 100,000 are children. So 80% are females younger than 18 years old and below. So we must call for an action of this. We must call for help. We must stop human trafficking. Fundraising. There are top 10 solutions of human trafficking. So the first one is fundraising. So most organizations working to fight human trafficking are non-profit organizations that rely on donations. Holding fundraising helps maintain this non-profit. So the next one is the volunteer. So for example, Unseen is a non-profit organization that helps victims of human trafficking by providing specialist care to help them along the road to recover. There are several volunteer roles with Unseen ranges in level of time commitment. So the third solution is be aware of the sign of human trafficking. So sign that someone is a victim of human trafficking came in several categories: poor work and living conditions, poor mental health, and lack of control are some of the main areas to look for. So the next one is the advocate. For example of this is cornerstone of anti-trafficking legislation in America, yet it expired in 2011. Anti-trafficking non-profit all over the country band together to advocate for its reauthorization, which was granted in 2013. So the next one is hold event to raise awareness. So this is another solution of human trafficking. Regardless of what the event is, there are efficient ways to raise awareness for a cause and gain new followers. Then the next one is boycott products and companies that permit human trafficking. So an easy way to find out what product contribute to a slavery footprint is the Department of Labor's. And then the next one is we must help survivors. So helping survivors and contribute to the recovery, stop the cycle of trauma in its track, and ensures it won't be repeated again. Okay, then help combat the demand. So this solution of human trafficking is can be applied to the lives of people, not Filipinos. People are everywhere, helping everyone feel like they are joining the fight against the international issue. So this is an international issue, so we must help one another. And then the last one is we must stay informed, and we must report suspicious whenever we can see a crime like this one. So that's it. Thank you.